Welcome to Holistically Speaking. I'm Hilary Russo, certified holistic health coach and health and wellness journalist. This is an empowering place to explore self-awareness, self-love, and transformation through health, healing, and humor. By sharing life-changing experiences, knowledge, and guests with varied expertise, we'll explore who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm glad you're here. You have cancer. These are 3 words you never want to hear. And for Bethany Webb, the news came as a huge shock for this yoga-loving, holistic living mindset coach. You think you're doing everything right, and then bam, the big C word. I can't think of a more appropriate guest to kick off October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month than my friend Bethany. She not only shares her own story of trauma to triumph, she wrote the book, my friends. And now she's here on Holistically Speaking to take us along on the journey that paved the way for true freedom. Oh my goodness, Bethany. Oh my goodness, I'm so elated to have this time with you. We've been chatty before we started this podcast, and girl, we've never even actually met, but here we are. We're both SMU grads. We're in a number of the same groups, and it's just I feel like I know you. So happy to have you here. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. And I feel exactly the same way. It's like instant girlfriend vibes immediately. And yeah, I feel like we could chat forever and then forget to press record.
Oh yes, I almost forgot to press record. Did I mention that?
Yeah, good job.
Thanks for the reminder. So anyway, you're here. We're about to dive into Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, yes. And you yourself are a breast cancer survivor. So yay you. And you have this incredible book that is being released, My Guru Cancer, which is really all about your journey and so inspiring to be able to share that with folks. So lay it on us. What's your story, girl?
Yeah. So, it's really funny. I love September because this is the month 5 years ago, actually, to this date is when I got that, heard those 3 words, you have cancer. And at the age of 34, being Miss Yogini career for 10 years and eating healthy and organic and plant-based and taking care of my body, mind, and having no family history of cancer, it was pretty surprising to hear words like that. And it's funny that it's September, and then right after that was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and so there's just pink everywhere and cancer. All of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, I'm aware of it. Checkmate. I'm aware. So my process though was a little bit different, and I had been training for years in different methods of finding peace in my body and my mind, learning how to enjoy life, definitely very much on the natural path. And really, it was actually in 2015, so 5 years ago, I was certified in this mindfulness practice called the Work of Byron Katie. And it's a way to meet your thoughts and beliefs that create stress and really free your mind of them. And I had been a student of that practice for years and years. And like most things, when you find something that's like super fun and works for you, you do it for a bit and then you just don't. And that happened to me. I just stopped that practice and I noticed a big difference in my life. Like I was more emotional, frustrated easily. I just felt off center and a little sad and depressed. And so I signed up for the certification program to hold myself accountable to doing that work. And I needed, a mental boot camp is how it felt. My mind was so good at just trying to get out of doing things for self-care and self-love. And so it was like this accountability check. And so that training program was 2 years and it was phenomenal. And I learned how to use that process in every area of stress in my life. So in relationships and my work, with my parents and raising my godson, fears of the future, and then also on body stuff. I had some super intense migraines during those years and just learned how to, react to them differently and meet them differently in my body and mind. And just experienced so much relief from this process that, by the time the summer of 2015 rolled around, I was like on top of the world, and ready to launch a career that combined yoga and this practice of the work. And so I felt, amazing at that time, healthy and just ready to take on the world. And what happened instead is my greatest yoga teacher, I call it now my guru, arrived instead. And that was a very aggressive form of breast cancer. And, at first in that diagnostic process, so, I felt the lumps. I found them myself, which I'm a big advocate of. Feel your boobs. Feel your boobs often in the shower, in bed, wherever. Just feel your boobs, because I'm the one that discovered the lumps. And ironically, I had lumps before. I started getting in my late 20s, and I would take them to doctors, and there were always some kind of cyst or swollen lymph node. And so I learned how to monitor them over time, and, they'd usually go away. And so I learned how not to freak out. But this was the lump I didn't get checked out right away. And so I'm also a big advocate of, hey, just get it checked out anyways. So it really almost a whole year passed until I felt another lump in my armpit and was like, oh, crap, this is different. So, the diagnostic phase in really, any kind of health condition, it can take a while, and especially with cancer, there's scans and waiting and we call it the waiting game, in that phase. And so I think it was about maybe a 2-3 week process of when I would get, the ultrasound, the mammogram, and then I had a biopsy, that confirmed it. And so within that time period, I first went to my fun little habit of just literally dropping every peace tool I had ever learned. Like I threw it out the window and turned to the art of ugly crying, freaking out, depression. I mean, this girl went down. Like I could only see worst case scenarios.
But understandably so.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you were just thrown a big curveball.
And I was pissed. I'm like, this is not what I want to deal with in my 30s. Like, this is the time where people are like growing babies and careers and, getting growing their lives, not growing cancer. So I was pissed that I had to deal with all of that. And so, and then
was
scared.
That your first thought? Just interject. Was that your first thought? Was it being pissed? When you think about a feeling or a word, what was the first thing that came to mind when you found out?
Well, actually, I'm still speaking of the diagnostic phase, and this was just at the potential. And it was when, I had kind of gone down a route. So if I were to rewind a few weeks before I started the mammogram and ultrasound, I actually went to a naturopath for the lumps. And they did this, this form of monitoring called breast thermography. And, it's known to be able to detect breast cancer, but without any radiation, because I feared Western medicine. I was, Miss Natural. And so that process really appealed to me at the time. And, he did all the photographs and stuff and digital imaging and told me that it wasn't cancer, that it was just, my lymphatic system needed to be drained and, some other stuff. So I was on some homeopathy and herbs, and the lumps kept growing. So it was, weeks passed. I told him I felt concerned it was still growing. We did more scans. Again, no signs of cancer. And then that's when I said, okay, I think I need to go to Western medicine. I don't feel comfortable. And so, I'm so happy I listened to that voice. Of course, I wish I listened to that voice a year earlier. But at least, she got loud enough in me to be like, okay, go get it checked out. And, the naturopath said, sure, do what you need to do and just know mammograms cause cancer. And I'm like, well, I've never had one before. So are you telling me that the lumps will magically turn into cancer if I have a mammogram? And then, so it just showed me a clear direction to go get it checked out further. So it was really when I did do the mammogram and ultrasound. So finally I'm like, okay, good. I'm finally going to know, because I'd been in this waiting game for a bit now. And it was when she told me, the doctor told me there in the office that they couldn't quite tell for sure if it was cancer and would need to do a biopsy to confirm. And so that was the point where I was like, fuck this, and just lost it. Because I felt like I had waited long enough. I held my peace. It was done. And so that's when it went downhill for me. So I didn't know for sure if it was cancer yet. So then it was this 2-week period of time between that and then having the actual biopsy. And so what happened is, I spiraled downhill, and, my mind was full of so many beliefs, and all of them were scary movies of the future. I have cancer. I'm dying young. I can't fulfill my dreams. My family will suffer. This is the worst thing that could happen to me. That's all I could see in my mind. And so, and with that, I lost my energy. I didn't want to walk or do yoga or eat great, or I just lost all motivation. And, it's funny, I'm extremely, extremely grateful that experience happened. Extremely grateful, because
tell me why grateful?
I got to hit a certain level of suffering where I could so clearly see the cause of my suffering. And it couldn't have been cancer then, because I didn't even know I had it for sure.
It's an awareness, huh?
Yeah. It was 100% what I was thinking and believing about cancer. That's why I was suffering then. So, and the gift of suffering often, at least for me, I hit a certain bottom where it's like, okay, girl, enough. Like, it's time to jump in and do something about it. So I hit that moment, and, I knew what to do. It was to take these beliefs, these scary beliefs about cancer, to that process of the work, which is also called inquiry. And that's what I did. So I started, I called a free helpline that's on thework.com. I started doing the work with friends. I started doing it by myself in writing. And it was phenomenal that within that 2-week period, by the time I walked into that biopsy, I was excited. I could only see beautiful ways that my life could shift and get even better because of cancer. So I opened my mind to the possibilities that, wow, it could help me become more present. It could make me better at my job. It could connect me with more people. It could strengthen my relationships. It could help me appreciate life even more. It could help me test, these practices I do throughout, the whole treatment plan. And so I went into that biopsy on a high, like a happy high of wow, I can be happy and find joy if it's cancer or not. And, someone might name that unconditional peace, and that's incredible. So by the time I did hear those words, you have cancer, for sure. Of course, they were surprising, because I did not feel sick at all. But they didn't have that same, soul crushing effect that I think they would have had if I hadn't worked my mind, at that point. So I became so inspired by how I felt, feeling excited for cancer. Who does that? That it was funny. I would wake up around 2 a.m. almost every night during that time, and start writing. And it was like words just had to get out, or I couldn't sleep. And so that was the start of the book. 5 years ago was my book baby. I did, I made it a blog at that time, so I could, share with people real time what was going on, my process. And then also it's very convenient for updating people, because things move quick when you start treatment.
It's therapy, right?
Yes.
It's therapy for you.
God.
I mean, writing, I love journaling. I tell my clients all the time, journal, get your words out. You're much more aware when you're in thought. And then when you see it on paper, when you see it in black and white, or whether you're doing it on the computer, suddenly those things that are fearful or angering you, or they do have a different life when you see them in the words, right? You notice that?
It's putting the mind on paper, and it's it's not so scary. when it's there. And sometimes, our minds we have 60,000 thoughts in our head per day, or and
At
then
least.
some. And so like to see it come out of your mind onto paper, sometimes it just gets hilarious. You're like, oh my God, that's so BS. I call belief systems. It's just BS.
It is. It's the belief system we have within ourselves. It's that, which I love to call the inner bully. We tend to, and then it's laughable. Some of the stuff is laughable that we're angry about. And that's why, that is why I always, and I do have to share this with listeners. That's why I am like a huge fan of never sending the shitty first draft. The SFD. Write it out. Don't send that, but don't you dare press that send button. You better read that first before, it's the words we say to others, especially because it can be very damaging when we say things to people in anger. And I've learned from experience, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah.
But the words we say to ourselves too. Like, how are we talking to ourselves? What's our SFD to ourselves? Don't press send before you put that thought in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And that's what I love about this process, because I have not been successful in deleting those thoughts. It's not, they still arise. I see them, but where I'm empowered now is I don't have to believe them and go along for that ride. And especially that self-talk, negative self-talk tape recorder, that gets played on repeat. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. You suck. And, all the other language. It's like, mind is going to show up. There are thoughts. But I don't have to, buy into that ride.
Or they have different meaning. Yeah. Is that through the Byron Katie work?
That's the practice. I mean, belief systems, there's so many different practices for it, but it's the one that is the most efficient to me. So
sure.
And it works with everything, and it's really easy. All it is like, if you have a belief or a thought that creates stress, you ask yourself 4 questions. So the first one is it true? And it's just yes or no. The second is, can you absolutely know that it's true? And again, that's a yes or a no. And that word absolutely is big. Like, absolutely means 100% without a doubt, like it would hold up in court, truth. And again, yes or no. And then the third question is, how do you react? What happens when you believe your thought? And, when I use the example of, my life is over because of cancer, I'm depressed and angry and resentful. And I can only see worst case scenarios in my mind. And I have past images of the movies I saw about cancer and or the stories I heard about from other people. I had no direct experience with cancer. So it was all just images, of the past. And then I saw the future of me dying young and everyone's sad around me. And, I have gray skin, no hair in the hospital, like images.
That's powerful.
Images. And so you get in touch with that in question 3, how you react. And you realize like how much we're affected by our imagination, because we believe it's real. And then question 4 is my favorite spot to sit in. And it's, it's really a meditation, is who would you be without the thought? And you can be in the same situation. So I have cancer cells in my body, but who am I without the thought that my life is over? It's like, well, I'm seeing, okay, I'm alive. I'm breathing. I'm looking out the window. There's a tree. Okay. Like, when's my next appointment? I'll go to it. What do I want for lunch? And, I'm just much more present, available. My body, there's less tension. And then, when my mind becomes a little more open to the blessings that could be arising either now or could happen in the future, rather than just that scary, scary movie. So
lots of gratitude.
Totally. 100%. And it's genuine gratitude, not like, oh, I should be positive and peaceful. It's a genuine state of appreciation.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is so important to remember, that we have to be authentic to ourselves. We have to truly believe what we're putting out there, and the work I do with havening, which is very similar, and it changes your thoughts, moods, and behavior through the psychosensory approach. A lot of that is that what I share is that you have to really, if you're going to throw out some affirmations while you're havening, or while you're
Mm-hmm.
doing
Mm-hmm.
Byron Katie, or while anything that you're doing, anywhere where you're trying to change your thoughts, moods, and behavior, you need to believe the affirmations that you're putting out there. Don't just say the
Yeah.
words,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. And that's actually, so the last part of the work, it speaks to that specifically. It's the turnaround process. So you take a thought and you just start flipping it to different opposites. And
Mm.
so if we're working the thought, my life is over, we flip it to the opposite, my life is beginning, or it's not over. And I would sit in it and find examples. Like, so it's not just enough to say, because it sounds just like an affirmation, my life is beginning. But now I want to find proof and examples. Like, how could it be true that my life is actually just beginning? And, I look at one, I have no proof I'm dying. There's no evidence, like just a story in my head. Two, I had already seen at that point, like how much inspiration and things I was learning about myself when I saw cancer as more of a teacher, that's here to grow me. I felt so connected and at peace and present, like more so than any yoga class, any meditation I'd ever done. So my life is beginning. And then I started seeing how what I was doing was helping others. And so I'm already in this, wellness career, but this was a whole new direction of it that I would not have been able to really understand if I hadn't gone through it myself. And so there's my life is beginning. And so, I'm finding proof. So it can't just be an affirmation. I'm finding specific examples. And, I'm free to keep the thought my life is over. It's free, it's a free world, but geez, how's it working for me? Like it is actually really, really painful and didn't benefit me or anyone else, in any way. So, that was the process I walked through, and I used it it was a 2-year treatment plan. So it started with 6 months of aggressive chemo, which, that was a big, big, big thing for me, was to learn how to make friends with Western medicine. Because I saw it as just like big pharma driven, evil, poison, out here to ruin our lives. Those were my beliefs about medicine. And so those are the thoughts that I started questioning. And there was one thought in particular that, God, it just disintegrated my fear around Western medicine. Was chemotherapy is poisonous to my body. And
That's
I
a
met it
big
with that
one,
process.
Bethany. That's a
Oh
big
yeah.
one.
And doctors say it, like people will say it. But when I walked through that process, like, can I really know that that's true for me and my body? And then how I react when I believe it, I'm like in a state of terror. Like, I don't want to see that needle. And then I'm fearing and cursing this treatment that's supposedly curing me. Like, I'm at war,
Before we get to that, though, and I want to talk about that because I really loved that conversation we had prior to this.
Yeah.
Being that you're this health coach and you're health and wellness advocate, and you live this life, and you're this yogi, and and I think of myself, like, how would I react to this? Because the first feeling you think when you are living holistically and living well and doing everything you can to just balance your life, and then you find out that this has infiltrated you. There's got to be emotions of feeling like, well, what the hell am I doing practicing this?
Yep.
So, like,
100%.
touch on that briefly, and then I definitely want you to go into
Absolutely. It's shame.
Yeah.
Like shame. I mean, just deep, gut wrenching shame I experienced in the beginning. It was like, who am I? I can't work in this field anymore. I failed. I failed at being healthy. And there was part of me that felt like I created it, like I manifested it in some way, either by not eating, I could have eaten even healthier, or I, could have worked on my heart chakra more, or I could have, and blessed my natural friends, but they were also telling me things like this, which was really hard. It was like, oh, you just need to open your heart chakra. I'm like, oh, I thought I was, like, what's going on? But it was, there was a lot of guilt, shame, and just, and self-blame, for it. And, there's this whole, like, we manifest our reality, in the spiritual world is a big, huge belief system. And things like, we can heal ourselves, and I felt like a huge failure and embarrassed,
Mm-hmm.
and there were definitely thoughts of, I think, my career is going to be over. No one's going to want to work with me now that I've had cancer. And what I love is, I got to experience the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to work with me because I've been through this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really humbling. And I was humbled, period, because I was that person. I was a spiritually arrogant person who thought, if you just do X, Y, Z, you live a healthy, great life. And, if you're sick, it's something you're not doing right. And you need to eat this or juice that or cleanse that, and right. I don't, it brought me to my knees, and just realizing, wow, like maybe sickness, illness just happens. And it can be, when we open our minds to it, it can be one of the greatest gifts in our lives. Mm-hmm. And there's no blame, like I do not know how I got cancer, and I will never know.
How does that feel to you to say that out loud? Is there still this feeling of, we always want answers, but sometimes no
right.
answer is the answer.
And that's the answer for me. I know some people feel really clear on how they got it. And sometimes there's genetic markers and, things, but I just know for me, I can have a million theories, which I have. And it took me down this like rabbit hole of shame, of blame, of anger. And, I realized like, no matter what, I couldn't ever know for sure. Mm-hmm. Like there's no way to prove it. There's just no way. And so I just let that go of the how and then answered why I got cancer. And it is, for self-realization, for learning, for growing, for sharing, this book that I created, all the new connections, the cancer organizations I'm part of now, and, like just the whole world that's opened up to me because of cancer. I stay in that why. Mm-hmm. And that feels really good. And for some people, investigating more how could serve them too. I don't know. It created more stress for me.
And you went from this place of basically, as you had shared with me, in 2 weeks, you went from terror to excitement. Yes. And creating this blog, starting to write is what has created and turned into My Guru Cancer, all these mm-hmm. stories over this time period. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because what was the goal of the book?
What it really was is I wrote the book that I wish I could have read when I was diagnosed. I really looked for that book. People send you all kinds of, you get presents when you have cancer. And so people are sending like scarves and hats and coloring books and lots of books for reading. And I wanted to learn more about this process, but often a lot of books that I would read scared me. They created even more fear because they were like super intense details about treatment. And I was just about to start chemo. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like mm-hmm. I'm literally not going to be able to get out of bed for the next 6 months or so, or, I'm going to have a whole lifetime of side effects and so, and there were some great things in some of the books too, but overall, it didn't show me a way to find happiness now in cancer. It showed me more like, here's how you just buckle through this shitty, horrible thing. And then later you'll be happy. And I didn't want that. I didn't know if cancer would end or not. Nobody knows. There are no guarantees. So I wanted a way to find direct access to joy, a beautiful life right now. And so that's what motivated me to keep doing my inner work and then documenting it through writing. So I used, and that became a blog. So I used that blog as a backbone for the mm-hmm. book. So once treatment was over, which, it was 6 months of chemotherapy, a double mastectomy, 28 treatments of radiation. And then a year later, I got my new boobs. I call it my boobiversary. It's a breast reconstruction. And I'm still on, there's a medication called tamoxifen because my cancer was hormone positive. And I'm really good at making estrogen. Apparently it like blocks, if there was a remaining cancer cell in my body, it would block it from being able to feed on estrogen. So that's actually 10 years. And then I'm on this medication. So as you can see, I've really had my plate full and making friends with medicine.
Yeah, and that's something I'd love to touch on, because here we
Yeah,
are, being in the holistic world, a lot of times we're like,
of
food is thy
course.
medicine
Yep.
and
And
medicine thy
nature
food,
is better.
and
And yeah,
chemo, that's bad, and
yeah.
you are of a different mindset with chemotherapy.
I am. I really found, my truth with chemo is that it's not poison. It's actually a healing cleanse
Mm,
that's here to support me. I mean, and that's my reality. It's not like a pretty picture I'm putting on it. It literally is here to support me in living my life. And if it is poison in any way, it's poison to cancer cells. And
mm,
good, two thumbs up for that. So I went into infusions with a state of gratitude,
mm,
and just welcoming it in as a healing cleanse. I did meditations and stuff about my body, like healthy cells being protected, and then just washing away the stuff that doesn't serve me. And I had a good experience in chemo. Like, yes, I was tired and I learned how to take like 5 naps a day and things like that. But I just knew it would be a time for being, not for doing.
mm,
And so, because I wasn't arguing and trying to like keep up the same pace of life, I know I had an easier journey in that. And then all the natural things and the foods and the juices, and they're amazing. And I think they really supported me with side effects. So what I found is like Western alternative medicine, there's such a war between them. They bash each other constantly. And where I am, and I think it's the direction of medicine that it's going now, which is so exciting, this integrative approach that,
mhm,
it's all has value
mhm,
and works really well together. But I can tell you, as someone who really wanted to learn both ways as a cancer patient, it was very hard to find research and materials that didn't bash the other thing I was doing. Like I crave that doctor that was like, you need to be on a curcumin supplement and doing vitamin C infusions with the, like I crave that doctor that knew both. But I just, became that person that would learn it for myself. And it really made a huge difference. And the main thing in all of it, which is you'll see in the book, is mindset.
mhm,
My mindset throughout all of it made the biggest difference on how I felt emotionally and physically. So my body could be going through whatever it's going through, but with that open, clear mindset, like it wasn't a problem.
mhm.
And so, yeah, I did that throughout the 2 years of treatment. So the book captures that. And it also is, it's full of ton of embarrassing, like overshare stories of like, my mom giving me an enema or not being able to pee after surgery and,
Some of
all
the
the
realness
weird
of things, right?
conversations you're having of building your boobs with man-made materials. And I also flash back and forth in time between like the 10 years prior to my diagnosis, and how they trained me to go through what I went through. And so, I used to have this big advertising career, and I quit that when I was 25 and decided to buy a one-way ticket to Spain.
Mhm,
And so, that time is like plays in there. And, how I met my husband at the time is in there too. And just our beautiful romantic story. And then the challenges we went through with
mhm.
cancer
Yeah.
as well, because it was really, really, really hard on our marriage, and how we worked through that. And so it's really, yeah, it kind of touches everything. But what's interesting and the book has been out for a little bit, and what I'm hearing from people, um, like, yes, I wrote it. It's, if you think of your main primary target audience, it's me, people who are going through cancer or have gone through cancer and are trying to find, a richer life because of it. And don't want to get stuck in that like victim war mode that is, the common language of cancer.
Sure.
What I'm hearing is it's helping people with any kind of diagnosis or any kind of just big, huge life curveball,
Mm,
because that's what a diagnosis is. And I relate it to what's going on now with COVID. I joke that like in March of this year, everyone, like the whole world, got a cancer diagnosis because nobody saw it coming.
that's a great way of putting it,
Nobody's
Bethany.
been here before. They're
Yeah,
like, what the
right.
hell? Your mind is full of these images that you're seeing on the news, and like, the Spanish plague in the 20s,
Yeah.
and then the future. And it just looks like like the world ending. And then but it also affects, your daily life. Like it affects your work. It affects your relationships, as well. If you're all now like together 24/7 and parenting, and then it can affect finances, and it really butterflies out into all areas of life. So, I was trained for COVID with cancer. It was just like, it has not been a stressful experience for me. It's been wonderful. Because of this practice, that I have. And so I hear from people that even if they don't have cancer, that they really have benefited from reading the book and applying those tools to their own life. So it's kind of like combo of like, it's a wonderful narrative and story, and that's engaging and funny. And it's also a how-to, with that as well. So anyone can walk away from that book knowing how to take those tools into any area of stress in their life. And I also offer, of course, more resources for that too. But yeah, I'm so happy. And I call it my book baby.
And the way you promote it is hilarious.
Yeah, I'm a huge dork.
You are. And that's what's so fun. I think that's what gravitated me to you, because, my whole thing with the podcast is finding inspiring stories from trauma to triumph through health, healing, and humor. And we have to have the humor. And yes, it's very difficult when we're going through things. We are at the bottom of the barrel and we are feeling our worst. But it's when we come out on the other side, and even while we're going through it, finding some of the lightheartedness and humor in it, that's what helps us heal. So seeing some of the ways you promote the book have cracked me up,
Well,
and you're right.
That comes out of, a common trauma for younger cancer patients is treatment causes infertility. Which is the case for me. But I never had my fertility checked before. So for all I know, I was always infertile, but, it literally is, I joke, but I'm like, this is my birth. This is my birth. This is how I'm going to be birthing in this world. And so, the photos of being pregnant with a book and, an actual video of the birth. And then now I have my book baby in like a stroller, the Ergo baby. The other day I took her camping this weekend. It's fun. It's fun and silly. And it makes, what was a traumatizing experience, it makes it meaningful. And a sense of purpose with it.
So you talk about sea love, you talk about, the fact that you had this double mastectomy, and, that kind of plays into just a woman out there, the dating life, or just, losing your breasts, and others I've spoken to, the upset that comes into mind is like, are these going to be, are anybody want to touch these, and are they really a part of me? So there's that side of things. And then also moving briefly into, you really dodged the bullet because just prior, you were not insured.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa. And there's a lot of us out there that aren't. We make a choice. There's other ways we think we're staying healthy, but, so those two things there that I'd love to touch on.
Yeah. Well, as far as the insurance, I have been self-employed for almost 10 years, and it was expensive to get health insurance. And I know Obamacare and the marketplace, come up, but it just financially just looked like a huge financial burden. And then also my mindset at that time was, if I were sick, I would handle it naturally anyways, which isn't covered by insurance. A lot of people think like that. Yeah. So that was my mindset. And I was so fortunate that when I was diagnosed, we had just moved from Austin. We were running a bed and breakfast out there, and then moved back to Dallas. So because I had changed locations, and that it allowed me to qualify for special enrollment in Obamacare. And I'm not kidding, like, Obamacare saved my life. I would be in millions of dollars of debt right now if Obamacare didn't exist. And they got rid of pre-existing conditions, so I could get coverage. But if this happened 10 years ago, oh my God, a whole another world. And so I learned the game of healthcare and insurance and how it works. And I kind of became my own little advocate for it. It is not a perfect system in any ways. It's so frustrating. You're going to be on hold music, for like hours
Right.
and hours, and medical bills are going to be wrong, and you got to challenge them. And so I joke that I became a medical bill ninja, because I did, and it paid when I did that. There were a lot of errors, but I just stayed on top of it and really engaged, and also looked for grants and other ways to get coverage. And I really made it work. And things like, having the belief that they're wasting my time on hold calls. Well, what I would do instead is press mute on the on hold music, and I would watch a Netflix show or do a yoga stretch or exercise or make a meal, and I would stop wasting my own time, and make that an actual efficiently productive time.
Because I think
I wasn't pissed.
I think that's a lot of the reasons why people don't. I mean, here we're dealing with COVID right now. There's people that are trying to get unemployment. They're dealing with their health care. And every other avenue where we have to be put on hold. Find something else that's a pleasant distraction to do while you're waiting, because you're just going to create that anger within. But what a brilliant tactic to put that out there. Yeah. You used it for your benefit. And well,
it's like, I'm going to go through it, just like cancer. I'm going to go through this dang phone call. So I'm either going to be angry and resentful in it, or just learn a way to enjoy it. One's more fun than the other. It's as simple as that.
It definitely gets people thinking, because like you mentioned, being of a holistic mind, there are a lot of people out there who are, and not even those that are in our field of work, but just in general, like, it's expensive. It's and it's fear. A lot of it's fear-based too. I don't want to wait on hold. I'm not going to get covered for that anyway. Why should I bother? Yada, yada, yada. Make the effort to just at least research and look into it to see if it's something that works well for you, and then make the choice. So that worked out in your benefit. And then you also talk about just how about just being a woman with these new tatas out there in the world.
Like, I would have to say, pre-cancer, if I had to pick two favorite body parts, they were my hair and breasts. I had this long mermaid hair that's kind of back now, which is exciting, but mermaid hair down to my butt. And then I was just blessed with like gorgeous double D breasts. I don't know. I have a thin body and it just happened, but it was an identity for me. Like, for years, that was what made me feminine and what made me beautiful and attractive. And so, that was threatened in the beginning of treatment, both things. And I really, again, I went into that shame and embarrassment about it. But it really brought up these core beliefs of, well, what is beauty? Is it really the hair? Is it really the boobs? Is being feminine, does it really only look this way? And just, it started opening my mind to, well, maybe not, and I'm going to get to test it and live it. And so I was like a stick figure, little bald alien for many months, and I felt gorgeous. And I felt empowered. And, I would wear a wig when it would be cold. And it was also just fun to be like, does this outfit go better with hair or not? So that part was cool, but I just learned to embrace it. And so when it came time for surgery, I actually had options. I could have done a lumpectomy, or a single mastectomy, or a double. And so, I originally wanted a lumpectomy. That was clear, like, less is more, nature girl, keep my natural gorgeous breasts. But my mind changed, and I walk through that decision-making process. It's a whole chapter in the book. It's called The Future of My Boobs, FOMB, FOMB. I tortured myself in that decision-making process, but I did end up in clarity about choosing a double mastectomy. And so I worked that belief, I'm losing my breasts, because that's of course what everyone says, and I'm losing my breasts. Is it true? And I walked through that process, and I realized I wasn't losing my breasts. What I was losing was some tissue that I've never even touched or felt, because it's underneath my skin. I'm feeling my skin when I'm feeling my breasts. So I have tissue that's being removed and being replaced with something that's less likely to get cancer. And that's it.
Precautions.
Like, that's reality.
Yeah.
And so I'm not putting all this extra meaning onto it. So it became, I'm gaining my breasts, and I'm gaining new breasts. May the 4th be with you, is my boobiversary. Just past my 3-year mark. And I celebrate it. And so, Yes, they're weird. I have implants. And so there's a lot of different ways breast reconstruction goes, but I have implants, and then they took fat from my love handles and injected it into my boobs.
Hey, whatever works, right?
Yeah, right.
You got super boobs.
Right. And they're anti-gravity. They stand up on their own. And I have to tell you, I learned something new about them this year that is hilarious, is they glow in the dark.
Okay, so, what? So you really do have headlights.
They didn't tell me this in the surgery, but like if you go into a dark room and you have breast implants, and I don't know if this is the same if you just have regular breast implants versus reconstruction like I had, because I don't have breast tissue anymore. It's, it's just implant and my, love handle fat. So if you go into a dark room and hold your iPhone flashlight up to your breast, it glowed like a pink glow ball. It is the
oh my God, and it's pink?
Thing. It's bright pink. And wow. So now I have glow boobs, and they're incredible.
So you're like totally the person we want to go with us when we go cave diving.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Like I'm going to call Bethany. I'm like, hey, we're going hiking. I didn't bring any of my flashlights. Bring the tatas.
We need your boobs. We need your boobs for this trip.
Right. Stuck on the side of the road. Car broke down. Don't have any flashes. Bethany's here. We got her boobs.
I know.
For multiple reasons.
So great. It's so great.
That is something new that I just learned that I had no idea. So, wow. So, hey, positive in everything, right?
And it's like, it's a great party trick.
She's great at parties. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
What I've discovered is, I have experience, I had all these thoughts about, being someone who has gone through cancer at a young age, had my marriage changed, because of cancer as well. And then going into the dating world, and I had all these beliefs of, oh my gosh, like I am tainted from this experience. Like I am this is baggage.
Yeah.
And my experience was quite the opposite. It turns out that men love them also. And I feel very attractive and feminine and all of it, it wasn't tied to it at all. So I like to tell people, it's like, oh, you have fake boobs. I'm like, yes, they are handcrafted originals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, and I'm sure it helps. It's something else to add to the toolbox because you've got the flashlight.
No one will ever be in the dark.
Yeah, and there's your slogan right there. So you've got this beautiful book, this beautiful offering to people that, like you said, which I love how you mentioned this, that you wish that something like this existed when you found out that you had cancer, and now it does. So to our listeners, if there's anyone out there that is facing, it doesn't even have to be breast cancer, just facing battles, but obviously this is focused more on breast cancer, or you are in the process of learning if you have cancer, or somebody that has cancer and is going through this journey. My Guru Cancer by Bethany Webb is a really wonderful book. We'll put a link in the podcast on the podcast webpage to share more about that. And thank you for sharing who you are. To close things out, I always do something a little fun, although we've already witnessed some fun with you. What I'd like for you to share, I'm going to do this backwards, actually. What I want to do real quick is a rapid fire with you, and then we'll do a closing thought. Okay. So I'm going to throw out a word, and then you just come back to me with the first word that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Yogi.
Girl.
Tatas.
Boobies.
Gratitude.
Life.
Cancer.
Gratitude.
Guru.
Welcome.
Welcome. I like that. Beautiful. Nice. Okay. It's funny. I put down.
Name.
No, I know. I love throwing this at people, and it's funny. I put down boobies/tatas, and I was like, if I say boobies, she's going to say breasts or tatas, and if I say tatas, she's going to say boobies. And you did.
So great.
It's funny how our brain works, right?
Well, what's really funny is when you introduce that game, the first word, like you hadn't even said a word yet, and the first word is fart. Like all I could think of is fart, like little fart. I'm like, oh, I'm going to say fart.
It never even came up in conversation.
I have no idea why. No.
Well, the funny thing is, when I do these rapid fires, I actually choose the words through the conversation. I don't pre-write the rapid fire words. I jot them down as we're talking because I want to see where your head is and see how it comes back and it reflects you. So it was beautiful. So what I would love for you to do is with some closing thoughts, if you have the space, obviously, I'd love for you to share with listeners of Holistically Speaking some final thoughts, what you might share with folks that could be going through this right now.
Yeah. Well, what I can share is we're all going to be facing challenges in life. We've already been there or we're in the midst of one, and it's a pretty guarantee you're going to get a curveball. And it can be in any area. And I just invite you to entertain the possibility that it could be the best possible thing for you, and to open your mind to everything that's going on, not just the scary stuff. Also open your mind to what you're grateful for, what you're learning, what it's teaching you, how it could be growing you, and open your mind to those possibilities of how it could be something that is here to grow you and make your life even better. And, I look at challenges, we're going to go through them anyways. And so it's, I can either go into that with a lot of fear or anger or resentment, or I can go into it with that sense of curiosity and inspiration and just, willing to be shown and see the blessings. So two ways. One drops the suffering. Mm-hmm. And that goes with, gosh, I can apply that to really anything. And I know we can all apply that right now to COVID, mm-hmm. and seeing those images of the future and the news, and, there's a lot of scary images. And what's good about this though? Mm-hmm. How has it brought you closer to your family? How has it connected you with more people all over the world? Because we're online now. Or how have you learned to adapt your business? How have you learned to quit that business and start a new one? There's a lot of opportunities here. And it really boils down to, it is a belief system. And I just like testing it, is that life is for me. Life happens for me, not to me, which is a really empowering place to live from. And test it, which is what I've been doing. And so far it holds true.
So amazing that you went there, that when I asked you that question, I thought it was just going to be coming out of being a cancer survivor, and you turned it into this completely positive life forward, so that touched me, so thank you for sharing that. And I have a feeling it's going to gravitate quite deeply with listeners. And on that note, such a joy having you here. You are a light. And that includes your boobs too.
I am 3 lights apparently.
Yeah, you're 3 lights. You got the high beams on, and you are a light. You are a joy. You are full of just positive energy and humor, and it is just a delight to have that kind of energy around us, and just see that there really is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the tunnel keeps going. So thank you for being here. To our listeners, Bethany Webb, she is a kick-ass breast cancer survivor and survivor in general. Please check out her book, My Guru Cancer. And we'll put that link into the podcast page, like I said, and also at bethanywebb.com. You can find that out as well. So Bethany, best to you, and keep being brilliant.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
If you would like a chance to win a copy of Bethany's book, My Guru Cancer, you have a couple of ways that you can enter. Check out my Instagram at Hilary Russo for details. You can also rate and review this podcast, Holistically Speaking, on Apple Podcast for more chances to win. Interested in finding out more about Bethany? Just visit the Holistically Speaking podcast page to get the scoop. And if you're ready to transform your traumas to triumphs and work with me personally, drop me a line on my website at hilaryrusso.com or even on social media. I'd love to support you on your journey to be kind to your mind. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Lipbone Redding. Until next time, be safe, be well, and don't forget to laugh.